Good morning. My name is Jason Timmerman, VP of Environmental and Workplace Safety for the Allegheny County. Good morning. My name is Jason Timmerman, VP of Environmental and Workplace Safety for the Allegheny County Airport Authority. Today, I'm here to talk about prevention through design and lessons learned during COVID for an airport design. You know, our first slide, we like talking about a little safety history here and the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge project. This project was built between 1933 and 1937, and they were expecting to have one fatality per $1 million spent. Although they did have 11 fatalities, which is unacceptable by today's measures, it was still considered eye-opening and successful because they did save many lives. And why they did it, or how they did that, was the owner was a guy by the name of Joseph B. Strauss, and he made it a top priority to make sure that safety was implemented on his project. And what he did was he did two key things. Number one, he implemented the use of a hard hat. This is the first construction project ever to use a hard hat during construction operations. And also he implemented a net that went the entire span of the Golden Gate Bridge, and that net saved many, many lives during the construction process. We're going to get into, let's test your knowledge a little bit. I want everybody to take a second and rank these 6 items. What is the average rank of priority given to each of the following criteria by architects and design engineers? Now take a moment and think of or write down your answers. Is it A, quality? Is it B, end user safety? Is it C, cost? Is it D, schedule? Is it E, aesthetics? Or is it F, construction safety? I'll pause here for a second. Okay, the answer is easy. We made it. It's A, quality is the highest priority, and then the last and the number 6 on the list was construction safety, which was the lowest priority considered by architects and design engineers. What we're here to talk about is prevention through design and moving safety upstream. How can we think outside the box? And you look at the definition of prevention through design encompasses all the efforts to anticipate and design out hazards to workers and facilities, work methods and operations, processes, equipment, tools, products, new technologies, and the organization of work. We want to make sure we look at safety differently on our projects. And looking at prevention through design, I like having the first example, and this is, Thomas Jefferson's home in Monticello. It's located in Charlottesville, Virginia. And you look at, the roof of this building where Thomas Jefferson actually implemented a handrail on the roof of the building back in 1782. That is a very early version of prevention through design, one that we could get a lot of use of on all of our projects today. And he had the forethought back in 1782 to implement that. This is an important diagram here, where in my past, I've worked 25 years in the environmental health and safety world for construction. And typically, in my past life, when we wouldn't get called out onto the project until we were in the yellow, the 2 to 3 years of construction operations. The fences would go up and you get a call and say, hey, Jason, it's time for you to go out to the project. We're starting construction. And realistically, and thinking outside the box, this has to be a holistic approach. And how can we get involved with our design teams and our architects very early on, as far back as the conceptual design, to start having conversations, to start looking at the safety of the construction workers who are building the project and the 50+ years that building has to be maintained. We can get involved with these architects and design teams in the conceptual design and the schematic design and the design development, and lastly, in the final construction documents. It's all about the holistic approach of having conversations very early on. My second example And I worked for a company in my previous life that was based out of the Nordics and out of Europe. And they have a much more robust prevention through design program in place. And these three pictures show hand placing concrete and the hazards that present themselves when you hand place concrete. You think about housekeeping. That's the obvious concern and the obvious hazard. You look at slip, strips, and falls, same level. If an employee is going from location A to location B, he's walking in a hazardous condition. You look at any type of back injuries from all the lifting you have to perform to hand place concrete. You're looking at pinch points and all the hazards with pinch points. You're looking at the hazards with using tools and looking at dropped objects. Things that fall off the building. Okay, as you can see here, when I was working for that company and I was looking in their prevention through design manual, on page 1 it said smart concrete forming methods shall be utilized on all projects. And that's an eye-opening statement, and it's something eye-opening that we can take as an industry. This is low-hanging fruit that we can try to implement. And I go into having tough conversations. And about this one particular topic of smart concrete forming methods, what are the 3 key hurdles? 1, not dictating means and methods. 2, the legal liability. And 3, not having this written into our contract with the architect teams. And the first one, not dictating means and methods, we're not trying to tell you what to do, but we can use our experience to educate, teach, and coach to make them make that decision, either the concrete contractors or the general contractors, or just using all of our knowledge to have them make the right decision to protect the worker. And that's what this is about. Another example is the simple roof railing. Look at the hazards that are presented with a simple roof railing. The picture on your left is a residential building. And what's that handrail look like to you? What's that handrail look like to a child? It's a ladder. It's called a ladder type guardrail or a ladder type handrail. So obviously that is a hazard presented and something that could be looked at and designed out very early on. The picture to your right, also, and I think looking at little kids, and I start thinking of little kids and my children, what's that look like to a child? It looks like, you climb up on that planter and jump over this rail. This is the same building. It's 12/13 stories. This was in downtown Washington, D.C., but these are hazards that could have easily been designed out with an early conversation. What happened here, and this is also Washington, D.C., you can see the Washington Monument in the background here, was, this couch that they had up on the roof, they decided not to put anchors on the roof to secure that piece of furniture. And high winds came through, and that piece of furniture got blown off the roof, and it came down 13 stories and landed on a car. It could have been a fatality easily. If you would have had simple anchors on the roof to secure that couch in place, that never would have happened. Also, what we found were, looking at this ladder type handrail that they had on this building as well, it increased the wind load coming through or off that roof because the wind blew through that rather than, having a glass rail where it would blow over. But again, another simple conversation could have eliminated this risk. This is something we see all the time. And, with ladders last and companies, eliminating ladders on their project, looking at the ability of floor design to support construction live loads. You got to think of your buildings. How can you have a more robust floor slab? And this floor slab that can be used, or you can put equipment on that and you wouldn't have any concerns. So during our prevention through design workshops that I was part of with Dr. John Gambatese, some of the questions, this was brought up a few times by superintendents in the field, like how can we make more robust floors? How can we support the equipment we're going to put on each floor and make sure that we are thinking this through in the very early phases. But again, another piece of low-hanging fruit that we can have a conversation with our design teams. How about sequencing of work and change orders? And how many times in the field have you seen workers go up on mid rails of scissor lifts? Basically, it's either because the sequence of work wasn't right or there was a change order. And you look at the ability to influence in the smaller photo here. When a change order comes into place, the cost is going to be elevated, and it's going to create that much more risk for the workers out in the field. So taking a good hard look at sequencing of work and also considering change orders and the hazards they present to the workers. How about size and weight of objects, excuse me. The picture on the left was a balcony. I guess it wasn't a windscreen. It was more like a balcony protector or a privacy screen. And it was installed on a project, but it was installed late. So they had to wheel that piece of equipment into or onto the balcony. And then they had to muscle it into place. They couldn't use a crane. They couldn't use any equipment. There's no forklifts that were available, no articulating booms because it was up in a high rise. So anyway, looking at sequencing of work and the size and weight of an object and looking at the hazards they present. And obviously the picture to the right, you look at that photo, it's just an amazing photo. I pulled offline somewhere, but look at the size of that piece of steel that's being installed and the hazards it presents, not only to the crane, obviously to the workers that are working underneath it, creating significant risk. The next example is painting pipe. And you think about painting pipe, yes, that is a prevention through design method. But if they ask you to paint the pipe after it's installed, that's the exact opposite of prevention through design. That is creating risk for your workers. So looking and considering, this was a change order that they decided to paint the pipe after it was already installed, created immense amounts of risk for the workers. Another great prevention through design method is modularization and prefabrication. This can eliminate risk when you construct something off site and then bring it to your structure and implement it. This is one of the key elements that they use over in Europe. It's something that we should consider on our projects. Okay, dropped object protection. If you're going vertical, there is a lot of risk generated by dropped objects. And how can we take a good hard look at that? And if you're using the engineered forming methods and engineered forming techniques, using the Doka forms, the Perry forms, you can come up with a cocoon system to eliminate, number one, workers being exposed to the edge, and number two, things falling off your building. These systems work. Again, it's not for everything. If you're building a 10 to 15 story building, is the cost worth putting in a cocoon if you have that money? Yeah, but you get up when you're going seriously vertical, 25, 30 stories and up. A cocoon system should be strongly looked at. It can help speed up production. It can eliminate things falling off the building and also eliminate workers in their leading edge work. Okay. Looking at dropped objects and what else can you do? Looking at leading edge protection, if you can't use a cocoon system, the leading edge protection, number one, it's safer. Number two, it's environmentally friendly. Number three, it's sustainable. And four, you can market it. You can paint that. You can put your company logos on these fences. Leading edge work, this picture in the middle was taken in Poland. You think about Europe, and they are much more advanced in the safety movement than we are here in the United States, believe it or not. But, I consider this also, it's an early conversation you can have with your team, and also looking at ladders lash. A lot of companies are looking at this, elimination of ladders. It can be done, and it does reduce the hazards that your employees are exposed to. And we look at, safety and design reviews, why do accidents still occur? And what can we do, what can be done to design out and prevent accidents? Some of the simple steps of implementing prevention through design. One is educating, teaching, and coaching. Two is the right place, the right time, having the right resources. Three, making safety and design a contractually prescribed to the architects and design team, and having safety as a high priority in the terms of your architects and design teams and your actual teams that are going to build your building, and the teams that are going to take place to put the structure together. We also have to look at the fifth element, designing for safety. It has value in communicating that to everybody. That is where the teaching, coaching, and instructing come into place. The holistic approach to prevention through design, I refer to it is very similar to LEAD, where you get the key stakeholders who have meetings at set points throughout the project. Having that continuous communication and these continuous meetings with all stakeholders along the way. You're looking at the 30% design all the way through the 90% design. We have to get the owners involved. We have to get the architects involved. We have to get the GCs involved and start having these conversations. And that's how prevention through design works. The hierarchy of controls, we're looking at prevention through design is, that is the elimination and substitution of risk and elimination and substitution of hazards. And I'm sure you're going to see a lot of this throughout the day. But, we have to look at the hierarchy of controls, and knowing that PPE is our last resort. We want to do everything in our power to eliminate risk or substitute out risk. And looking at our pre-construction activities, there's 4 key elements. One, we know prevention through design through our conversations today. Also looking at site logistics and planning, that's something else that it falls into the prevention through design bucket, when we're having these conversations with our project teams. Okay. Now, I work at the Allegheny County Airport Authority, and we're in the process of getting ready for construction on a $1.4 billion job. And I want to go in, I got hired back in April of last year, and I want to talk about the lessons learned during COVID for airport design, and what does prevention through design look like. Here are a couple of things. Like when I first came on board, they were talking about, we have these outside terraces, and architects and design teams were talking about using a scissor lift to access those points for maintenance. And we're like, whoa, we can't do that. That is against all prevention through design methods. So we have to look at, having a doorway, having a hatch, having some point of access other than a scissor lift. And because of that, if you look at these 3 photos, the photo to the right is the exact reason why. We say 100% fall protection between the lift and the building, and you could do it, but and I know that never happens. So we have to eliminate the possible exposure of our workforce. And this photo, we have a rolling roof on our structure, and we work together with the design teams to put horizontal lifelines everywhere on this roof. So, as soon as the employees got off or through a doorway onto the roof, they had the ability to tie off with the cable grab system. Something that just normal conversations, through these normal conversations, we are able to implement this process. Now, and you got to look at the airport, and we are the first airport designed and getting ready to build in the post-pandemic world, which is very challenging and very eye-opening. The things we're looking at, when we first started this journey, and I got hired on it, like I said, in April, and the design was basically baked, right? So we had to take a step back with COVID, and we were looking at our now, near, and next priorities of what can we do to protect, not only, our current workers and all of our passengers at Pittsburgh International Airport, but also looking at it for the future and our terminal modernization program. The nows, the low hanging fruit, the signs that you would put up, the plexiglass, what can we do to reduce exposure in our airport? And then we were looking at the near, we had touchless badge readers installed all over the airport, for the employees and back of house and as many areas where the passengers wouldn't have to touch anything. We have a touchless hand sanitizing washing unit. If you see the picture here to the right, we're looking or we had robotic UV scrubbers bought, and they roam around the airport. And this, I said, it's a standalone hand washing station. And what are we looking at in the future? Okay, we have redesigned to have 4 open air roof terraces where the passengers can go take a step outside. We have touchless elevators. We're looking into that pilot program right now that we're going to implement on the TMP. We're updating the HVAC system with needlepoint bipolar ionization. It's something of how we can clean the air and have those exchanges of the air, and how can we look at the terminal and be better from that perspective. And we have dashboards that are going to go. We're looking into having dashboards that are going to be placed throughout the airport that show our air quality. This is our open air rooftop terrace. This is one of the 4, the rendering of. We really want to look at the nature and the nature of Western PA and incorporate that into our design. We're looking at technology. How can we be very innovative? And we want to have the increased focus on health, wellness of travelers, visitors, and every employee. We want to make sure that is top of line, top priority of our future terminal. As you saw this earlier, our ability to influence goes way up in the concept and of the design phase. When we get into the design detail and the procurement, it gets a little bit too late. Our ability to influence is to get in early. And our lessons learned on this project, going back to this picture, is we have to have conversations very early on. Okay, we have to engage with our architects and design teams as far back as we possibly can. Look at once this project is a conception, that's when you start having these conversations. We have this holistic approach and having open conversations with our teams. Our construction projects are going to be a lot better during the construction operations and for the building maintenance. And our key messages for the TMP and the $1.4 billion project we have coming up, at the end of the day, we do this for our families. Our children, our loved ones expect us to come home safely every day. And we want to make sure that commitment is thorough and everyone truly understands our commitment to the environmental health and safety of every worker that steps foot on this project. That being said, thank you for your time. My name is Jason Timmerman. If you ever have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
For travel to return to something like normal, people will need not just to feel safe, but to be safe. It will take everything from installing better air filters on planes to rethinking entire airports.
We are building terraces so that once you get through security, you can actually go back outside for fresh air.
Christina Casotis is overseeing construction of a brand new terminal at Pittsburgh International.
And we're working on indoor air quality monitoring so that we can monitor in real time the air quality in each space in the terminal and adjust it if needed for crowds, airflow, etc.
It's a glimpse of what's to come